Hi friends, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and today we're looking at this guy. This is the Netron EN4 DMX node. Okay, now we're also going to cover in this video the EP4 because it's very similar in functionality. There's just a few key differences to be aware of. And so this is going to be both kind of an unboxing and a review of what we think about the Netron EN4. In the box, you get the EN4 itself. You get a waterproof power cable, okay? It uses the True 1 connector. Input and throughput on the back. So good, input and throughput. We'll talk about that in a second while I try to dent my node and instead dent my table. Okay, also in the box, we get installation guide. No, might be helpful. Safety instructions. Yeah, definitely throw that. I'm sorry, no, not really. And then we get some mounting options. So there's a little bag of screws, don't get rid of that. And then there are two sets of mounting options. So if you're mounting this guy, you're thinking about, okay, how are we going to mount this in a setting where we need to? There's a few options. So one, rack mount. This is a half rack. It does not come with the rack mount hardware, but they do have the Netron Net shelf that you can add on. It's a full rack shelf with a blank in it so that this guy sits in there and then you can cover up the blank side or put a second Netron device that's compatible with that same size. Okay, then you could even put a EN4 next to it, even though the EN4, also a 4-port Netron node, is not technically rack mountable. Then we get some DIN clips. Okay, so this is for DIN mounting, which is a type of permanent install electrical box. If you're not familiar, they spring in, and the way these guys mount up is, we'll go ahead over here, is you flip it upside down, and as you can see, probably there are some screw holes where you can go horizontal with the DIN mount. You can go vertical with the DIN mount. All right. Same thing. There are also these little guys in here. They almost look like a rack gear thing, but they're actually not. These are wall mounts. Again, horizontal, vertical, vertical. You know, if you want to do that, you totally could. So those go in there. Included bag of screws to be able to have all the hardware you need there. Also, as we always say, it is the Netron stuff. Just, oh my goodness! I mean, look at these boxes. Such a nice box, like legit. You know, they do such a nice job with them. Not that it matters, but it does matter. Good boxes matter, right? Toss that over there. Okay, so now we want to look at the unit itself. So the Netron EN4, this one, is a 4-port ArtNet or sACN node that can connect to your network, to your DMX console, that outputs ArtNet or sACN, whether that be Onyx or anything else, and it turns it into DMX. It also can be used for input. So these are 4 outputs. They can be turned into inputs. There's also a lot of other really great functionality under the hood. Okay, as mentioned, the EN4 has basically the same feature set. And before I get there, actually, you can clamp mount this as well. M12 labeled and M10 clamp holes for popular sized clamps. So you can put it on a truss. Okay, so let's go ahead, plug this guy in, and start talking about him. So power input on the back, it is a True 1 input, and there is a throughput there. Isn't that so lovely? Throughput, fuse, and then 2 network ports. Like most of your other Netron stuff, your 2 network ports, one of them says PoE below it. So that means this guy actually pushes out PoE power, which is just awesome. That you can chain a couple devices together and the last device gets PoE. Because the EP4, not having a screen on it, can be powered by PoE. And that's super cool, as can the EN2s, which have a screen. The difference, really the biggest difference between the EP4 and the EN4 is the rack mountability. Technically, the EP4 isn't rack mount, that you could put it on a rack mount shelf with some Velcro or something. And the PoE power on the EP4 because there's no screen. The EP4 also comes in at a killer low price. It is about $100 less at the time of this recording. So that's the difference between these two. Both can be configured via the Netron CLU software directly to the web server. You can just type in the IP address of the unit as well. And the EN4, this guy, can be configured by the screen, which we're going to do now. So these guys are so great. There's so much going on. The screens are just really helpful. Let me just zoom this guy in so we get a killer view of this EN4. And we're going to go ahead and plug it into power here, walk through some of the configuration options that we have here. So I'm going to show you boot up time really quick. Go. All right. Going to show you boot up time here, plugged in. And it's booted. Done. Okay. So we're going to see something on the home screen here. Whoop, let's see if we can get to focus. Yeah. We're going to see here, you get status on your 4 DMX ports. It talks about IP addresses on the screen that it may have that are going on. And then it also displays at the bottom there, you see it says no queue. So the inbuilt queue player can play queues. Okay, let's dive into some settings here. So we pop in here. This is a good view. Yeah, that looks good. It's got our IP address at the bottom. So if you need to talk to it via network, that's the IP address. The first thing to go to is the presets. So in the world of Netron, presets are awesome because you can both use the built-in presets to really quickly set it up in a way that's going to work, or you can build your own presets, save them, toggle between those presets. So if you use a couple different consoles maybe at whatever shop you work at or something like that, you have a couple different configurations you might do, you can save them as presets. You can back those up from the web interface. So you have a backup. It's beautiful, okay? So when lightning strikes, you're good, right? So we go in there, press to go in, presets. There's Netron presets. For a node like this, you can do ArtNet 2.xip, ArtNet 10.xip address, ArtNet 192 range, ArtNet 172 range, ArtNet DHCP, and then input as well, and input throughput, then the same for sACN, and then splitter port. So splitter port's actually kind of interesting because literally, I mean, this is a DMX node, so it's an expensive DMX splitter, but if you're in a situation where you need a split, you can toggle that one. So I toggled it. You can see here now, we have 1 green light, 3 blue lights. Okay, and if we go in here to DMX ports, hopefully I'm on the screen there, 2 DMX ports on the menu, we're now going to see port 1 is an input, universe 1 ArtNet. So that just means it's going to broadcast ArtNet if it's on a network that's incoming on that port 1. Then port 2, 3, 4 are all going to be the same. Their output, ArtNet universe 2. Okay, so input should be, I'm sure it's output. It is inputting universe 1, interestingly. Output is outputting universe 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what that seems to actually be doing is not really splitting it, but input on universe 1, output on 2, 3, and 4. But you could set it up literally input 1, output 1, output 1, output 1, and it should work. All right. So DMX ports, you go in there, you can set up all your ports individually. So you set the mode. Is it input? Is it output? Is it disabled? Send value is also cool because it just shoots out a DMX value. So for various control situations, that may make sense. Then you set what universe it's going to be. You set what protocol it's going to be, ArtNet or sACN or none. You set the range. So you can actually, with these nodes, you can actually filter what channels you want to send. So there can be particular install situations where a console may be outputting the full universe, but from this port, you only want to output certain channels. Again, that's kind of a weird niche thing that, like in live events, we don't see a lot. But sometimes on installs, if there's something really specific you're trying to do, that can make sense, okay? And so it's cool that they got there. And then offset address. This is nuts, okay? So you can literally bring this in here, and you can actually offset the DMX address and dial that up, okay? So DMX channel 1 is now channel 3 if you offset it by 2. And you can offset it to any number within the DMX universe. I mean, isn't that, like, that's absolutely nuts. Just the fact that you walk in, for whatever reason, you need to offset that address. you can totally do so. And that's pretty nuts here. What else do we have here? Boop. So we also got here, if we go back out of this guy, so all 4 DMX ports are going to be the same. Keeping in mind as well for these, there is, if it's an output port, I'll just set this one, there's now frame rate option, RDM on or off, and then there's the merger. Okay, so merger gives you the option to HTTP, LTP, toggle, or backup. Let's talk about Netron mergers for a minute. So first and foremost, the feature settings are the same on the EN4, EP4, EN12 right now. Those are the 3 units that all work the same, have the same features. They just have, you know, I told you the difference between the EP4 and EN4 already. The EN12 has 12 ports, okay, instead of 4. And they all have the same feature set for backup, so, or for merger, sorry, where you can, through networked DMX, merge different DMX universes together. So if you've got a band coming in and they've got their own console, you can have them send a different universe. They can patch, say, to universe 10, and then you can set it that universe 10 and universe 1 merge inside this node. You then have the options of HTTP, LTP, toggle, or backup. Backup is my favorite. They're all described in the manual really well. Backup is my favorite because basically the primary universe, whatever you set at the top of this menu as the universe is outputting, is like your main console, okay? And then when that one shuts off, if it stops outputting DMX, so in your console, in your software, that means you could shut down software, you could shut down the console, or in the console or software, you could simply turn off the broadcast of the network DMX data, okay? So you do that, and then it waits a second or two, and then it switches over to the backup. So now you can have either a secondary console outputting basically the same show, but in different universes. You could have you know, a headliner versus a opening act. And you know, when the opening act, when the headliner's done programming, they switch off their DMX, the opening act can program, the opening act goes on and plays, then they're done. Okay, the main act has up a look at blues or something, and they turn on their DMX. Now they take over output inside of the node. A really great option there. Also great option, we did another video about using DMX wall stations to merge in for some specific situations. And again, you know, you make your console the primary, the DMX wall station the backup, and then that wall station's only going to be able to get through if the main console is off. So people can't press those buttons, can't get output at times when your main console is on, which is like generally what you want. Okay, other settings, let's see here. So get out of the menu, but that's okay. There are queues. So queues are really powerful. You can go in there and actually save DMX output that's come in, and then you can run those queues manually. You can fire them through triggers. So if you go down to remote inputs, say input 1, run queue, you set a source. So now you can set up DMX, you can set up ArtNet, you can set up sACN, you then set up the address in the universe, and now you actually get, this is nuts, you get remote control of that queue. You can fire that from your network DMX source. So you can fire that from some sort of show control system, from some sort of like AV system that can send out DMX. You know, there's a lot of cool options there as to run a queue. The one thing you got to know about queues in Netron, at least at the time of this recording, is when they run, they take over output. So this isn't like a backup type situation. This is like a fire alarm's going off, you know, bring everything to full kind of situation. Okay. Next, boot back in there. Mode inputs, IP address, of course. View and test is great for seeing what DMX is coming down the line. You can see it's nuts. You can see DMX coming in physically if you have an input, ArtNet coming in, sACN. You can test DMX ports. There's just a lot of utility built into that if you're trying to troubleshoot something on site. IP address and then system. System just allows you to name it, give it an ID, set your display, timeout, brightness, LEDs in the front, blah, 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 blah. So, there's a lot packed into these guys. We really like these Netron nodes because it's like, at first glance, when you start comparing them to other nodes on the market, particularly the premium brands, you know, like your ETCs and your Swisson and people like that, your Luminex, it's like build quality, you know, feel and configurability is really on par with those brands, but price is less. And when you compare this to like hobby grade or like kind of DJ level DMX nodes that are out there, like this isn't really more expensive. It feels way better built, way better, there's way better design in all the mounting options, the configuration abilities, all that stuff. There's just like so much under the hood, and it doesn't cost more. Like the cost on these is incredible how much value they pack into these. So if you are looking for a DMX node, you need to output DMX via ArtNet or sACN. And you're looking for something that has 4 ports. Doesn't have to be 4 universes. Could be 2 universes that each have 2 ports. Then you don't need a DMX splitter. Then I would look really hard at the Obsidian Control Systems nodes. This one in particular, the EN4 and the EP4, its little brother without the screen. Because they're just a terrific value. They're really incredible. Combined with the fact all the features under the hood, the configuration software they have, the CLU, everything you get with these is just really stinking awesome. So if you're looking for these nodes, we've got them at Learn Stage Lighting Gear. Click the link below to check them out on our site. If you're interested, you can check out right there and we'll get this in your hand. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.